should Billy Napier be fired? Or the better question is, when will he be fired? So we'll get into that. Tyler, I will let you have the floor. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think me and you both know he is going to be fired. It's kind of when. I think it's after the UCF game. I'm hearing Florida fans saying it's win or lose against Mississippi State. I think it's, the defense on the Mississippi State is, well, we have a bye week so that we could get ready for the future, have an interim head coach, and then still be looking, whatever. They compare it to Jimbo Fisher. He was fired after he blew out Mississippi State, and I believe they had a bye week. I think you have to keep Billy Napier until basically the Georgia game, unless you have an ultimate letdown, which would be the UCF game, which is kind of where I think Florida's going to lose to Central Florida. Gus Malzahn is a weird coach. You saw what he did this past weekend. He went on the road, came back in a weird game, beat TCU. What's he going? He has a bye week. He's going to turn it around and probably lose to Colorado next week after a bye, and then boom, beat Florida 41-17. This is what Gus Malzahn does. He did it last year with the Oklahoma State game. Came out of nowhere a week before, lost to, I forgot, was it Iowa State? It was some random team they lost to by a lot. Turned it around, beat Oklahoma State 45-3. I see that kind of happening with the Florida game. I think Central Florida will beat Florida, and then Billy Napier will be fired on that Sunday, which is what, the October 4th or 5th or something like that? I think it's after the Central Florida game.
Yeah, that'd be October 6th he would get fired, yeah. Yeah, so I think, honestly, if they lose this Mississippi State game, you have to fire him. Like, you were playing, in my opinion, I said this going into the season, I didn't have him as the worst team. I put Vanderbilt. I should have had him as the worst team because in everything I was looking at, I believe Mississippi State, talent-wise, has the worst roster in the SEC. Oh, yeah. I don't even think it's close. I feel bad for Blake Shapen because he's actually playing pretty well, and I think he probably should have transferred somewhere else if somewhere else was available. Hell, if Michigan had Blake Shapen, they might actually be pretty decent because he's playing pretty good football right now. But everywhere else on this roster is just in shambles. I'm going to be in the minority here. I didn't like the hire of Jeff Lebby. I never liked it. And I think I do think there's a chance, with that up-tempo offense, the confidence and effort I've seen Florida play with. And I think Billy Napier's been over his shoes here with this job for a while now. I mean, watching that Utah game last year, that game reminded me so much of Tom Herman at Texas. If anyone watched Tom Herman at Texas, it was illegal procedure penalties, boneheaded penalties. And that's what you see with bad coached football teams. And that's what you've seen with Florida. Bad penalties, stupid mistakes. And it just continues. I haven't seen it get any better. And the funny thing is, Tom Herman at Texas had the P chart. Everyone saw that. Everyone made fun of that. And then you have with Florida and Billy Napier, like, pull your socks up. Wear these types of socks. He concentrates on all this stupid stuff, but he can't win football games. And I think he's gone, or he will be gone. It's just a matter of if or when, I should say. I think if he loses this game, he'll be gone after this week during the bye week. If he doesn't, I agree with you. I think even if they lose the UCF game, I think he survives that. I think he probably makes it to the next bye week before Georgia. But he's going to get fired during one of the bye weeks. Or the other scenario here is if Tennessee absolutely blows the doors off of him, I could see them firing them after that game because then they go and play Kentucky. And guys, Tyler, I'll let you guess this. When is the last time Florida had 3 losing seasons in a row? I'll let the chat try to guess that. Tyler, you can have a guess at it.
I believe it's definitely before the 1990s because that's when Florida football kind of started to kick off there with Spurrier. Was it 1971 through 74?
1945, 46, and 47. That is the last time Florida has had 3 losing seasons in a row. 3 losing seasons in a row. Billy Napier, congratulations. You just accomplished some history at Florida because if you stick around, well, even if you don't, you're going to get credited with it. You will have 3 losing seasons in a row at the University of Florida. He has completely demolished this football program. It isn't anywhere near what it used to be. Hell, it's not. Will Muschamp did a better job than Billy Napier.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah. And Will Muschamp, a great defensive mind, great defensive coordinator, analyst still at Georgia.
Yep.
Not a good coach, not a good head coach, and Billy Napier isn't a good head coach either. Dan Mullen had a 6-7 record. They fired him for that. The best record Billy Napier will ever have is 6-7. He should be long gone. Now, Tyler sent me something pretty interesting. They just came out with a couple candidates or odds for candidates for the next Florida job. We can run through that list real quick. We have Jamie Chadwell plus 400, Lane Kiffin plus 500, Deion Sanders, which you're throwing your money away if you're betting on that, plus 600, Eli Drinkowitz plus 700, Brent Key plus 800, Brian Schottenheimer plus 900, Glenn Schumann 12-1, Chris Kleiman 12-1, Matt Rule 14-1, Josh Heupel 14-1, Brent Venables 14-1. Tyler, out of that list, who is your most likely candidate to take over at the University of Florida?
Well, I hate to be like this for Florida fans, and I get in arguments all the time with Florida. I'm telling you, it's not going to be Lane Kiffin. Here's why. He'll be in the playoffs this year. Unless Florida has to hope that they go 9-3, miss out on the playoffs, because the signing day period is, I think, 2 weeks before the first playoff game. And then the transfer portal it opens on a weird time. This is going to be first year. So you're going to, if you hire not Dan Lanning, Lane Kiffin, you're going to probably set yourself back. So I like Drinkwitz out of Missouri. I don't think Missouri's going to make it to the playoffs. I love what he's done for Missouri and kind of where that projection is heading. Missouri was, when they came to the SEC, the first year they went 5-7, but then Pinkel somehow, some way won the East, lost a weird game to Auburn. Year later with Matty Mock, they lost to Indiana, then Georgia by 100 points, but still won the East. And they never really recovered after that, but Eli Drinkwitz has come in and had some really good seasons for Missouri. Now you could say, well, he only had one good season because they won 11 games last year. But even the year that they went 6-7, they were actually expected to go 4-8. But anyway, I think he's doing a really good job for Missouri. I think he's a very good head coach, and in my opinion, that'd be an A- hire. That's who I would say number one is. And then after that, listen, I don't know. Jamie Chadwell. That is a tough pill to swallow if that is Florida's next head coach. It's, my opinion, similar to Billy Napier. I would say he's slightly better. He's more of a proven winner because what he did at Coastal Carolina in that transitional season and in 2020, really, when he started to blow up. Then last year took over for Hugh Freeze. That would be a tough pill to swallow for Florida if they do hire Chadwell from Liberty / Coastal Carolina. So I would go with Drinkwitz. My opinion.
Yeah, I agree that would be a horrendous hire. First off, because Liberty, if no one knows, they play in one of the worst conferences in America. I think they had the worst strength of schedule last year. I think they're going to have it again this year. To me, what you're doing there means legitimately nothing. Like you could take a high school teacher with the talent they have and the money they spend on the football program, and he could put up good teams there because they actually invest in the program, whereas no one else in that conference does. Eli Drinkowitz would be interesting. To me, someone said it already. I think Jedd Fisch. This has been floated out there for the longest time. Jedd Fisch coming back to Florida. And I think he'd be a great hire. You'd finally get someone. Billy Napier is supposed to know offense. Jedd Fisch does know offense. Jedd Fisch puts out good offenses year after year. If anyone doesn't remember, Jim Harbaugh actually had Jedd Fisch on staff with them early on at Michigan as a passing game coordinator, I believe, and they did pretty well when he was there. So overall, I think it would be a great hire. I also think it would help someone with Lagway if you're able to keep him. And that's another reason to fire Billy Napier sooner rather than later. Try to keep the players on your team instead of entering the transfer portal or leaving eventually. And then also get better in recruiting. The recruiting is suffering right now. It's like 22nd in the country, according to 247. So it's not good enough. It's nowhere near the Florida standard. To me, Florida should be pulling in top 10 classes every year. So I would personally go with Jedd Fisch. If he is not available and he is not interested, SG1 Sports said something funny. He said, Urban Meyer, that's not going to happen. That'd be a hell of a hire. It's not going to happen. But I'm trying to, there's this guy, and I have a man crush on him. I've said it on the Texas channel. I had Penn State winning the Big Ten because of this guy, because of this offensive guy, Andy Kotelnicki. I freaking love him. I don't know how he's going to be as a head coach, but let me tell you, you would be very competent on offense. That I can assure you. You've seen the difference with Kansas not having him. Kansas is nowhere near as good on offense as they were with him. So to me, that's a guy I would look into. He's not even on this list, but Jeb Fish would be my number one pick. And then I would kick the tires on Andy Kotelnicki up in Penn State if he's willing to come.
I would say if you want to go the Penn State route, James Franklin is still a solid option. I know that a lot of people don't like him because he doesn't beat Ohio State, who's a top 5 team, and Michigan, who was a top 5 team. But before Michigan was a top 5 team, he was beating Michigan. He hasn't been able to get over that hump. He won the Big Ten kind of on a fluke season, for being honest here. They lost to Pitt early on in the season, and I think they actually lost to Michigan by 100 or something like that in that 2016 season, then went on a real good run. But he hasn't yet to replicate that, and I actually like James Franklin. I know a lot of people don't. I know the Florida fan over here saying Jed Fish leaving Arizona ended that possibility. I actually don't think so. I think he would definitely leave Washington for Florida if he had the chance and if Florida gave him that call. Washington, they had an amazing run last year. I mean, they, in my opinion, it was kind of flukish, no offense, but they won 8 close games. Let's be real here. The roster turnover is ridiculous. It's going to be hard for him to build that up. Kind of like what it would be at Florida. However, the resources are much better at Florida than what they are at Washington. So I think he would actually jump the gun and head his way to Gainesville.
Yeah, Florida's like a top 12-ish job, whereas Washington is like, I don't know, 20th best job in the country.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. And that's, I was being kind. And they, like you said, way more resources. I do think he would definitely leave for Florida, and I think it'd be a pretty good hire. And yeah, I agree with you. I don't think James Franklin's a bad coach at all. I think there's this perception because he can't beat Ohio State and Michigan, who do have better talent than him most years, that makes him all of a sudden a bad coach. Go look what he did at Vanderbilt. It's just like Greg Schiano, what he did at Rutgers. Those two guys can coach. James Franklin would be an interesting hire because honestly, I think Penn State is kind of the Florida of the Big Ten. I kind of think of them as the same type of program, honestly. So it'd be kind of interesting. I feel like that would be – is that a lateral move? I feel like that's kind of a lateral move.
Well, that's if he can't get over the hump this year. Now, I'm a believer in Penn State after I saw them against West Virginia. I know they struggled against Bowling Green, but I would actually love the hire. I think James Franklin is an exceptional head coach. He started rough at Penn State, but let's be for real here. I mean, look what happened. But he's been incredibly consistent. And, oh, by the way, he's won the Big Ten. I know it was 100 years ago, it feels like. But he's so consistent. He wins 10 games every single year. That's what Florida kind of needs. They need a coach that's been very consistent, who's proven it at the Power 5 level, who has a lot of experience. Maybe he hasn't jumped the gun yet, but maybe at Florida he's finally able to do it. That's my opinion. I would go with James Franklin as well, but I think Drinkwitz would be my number one choice after Lane Kiffin. I don't see you getting Lane Kiffin if they make it to the playoffs.